everyone, welcome back to the University of Guelph Arboretum. My name is Michelle and I'm the Summer Naturalist here at the Arboretum. And today has been a really hot summer day. It's one of those scorching hot days where I'm sure a lot of you are indoors, maybe enjoying a little bit of AC or drinking a nice cold and refreshing beverage. But what do all the plants and animals that live outdoors do on a really hot summer day? And that's exactly what today's video is going to be all about. I'll be exploring some of the different ways that plants and animals cope with these hot conditions. And if we start off with animals, animals have a variety of different mechanisms for dealing with the hot weather. Panting is one mechanism that a lot of different animals will employ when it gets hot. For anyone who owns a dog, you can probably very easily imagine or picture what panting is. It's that fast breathing that a dog will do. And panting isn't only done by mammals like dogs and coyotes, but also by birds. So when an animal pants, it moves air through its nasal passages or its mouth, and that allows the air to evaporate. Similar to sweating, when water evaporates, it helps cool down an animal. So panting is one thing some animals will do when it gets really hot. Some animals have unique characteristics and adaptations for dealing with the heat. If we can think of a rabbit's long ears, those ears actually provide a pretty great surface area for heat removal. So the blood vessels in those ears, when the rabbit gets quite hot, those blood vessels will actually dilate, and the large surface area of those ears will help dissipate the heat from the rabbit's body. Of course, one common thing a lot of animals will do, it's something I'm doing right now, is actually seek shelter from the heat. So I'm standing underneath some trees, and many animals will seek out shadier areas where the sun isn't beating down on them quite as much. Some animals, like chipmunks for example, will actually burrow into the ground. And for anyone who maybe has a basement or lives in a basement, you know that underneath the ground is quite colder than the rest of your house. So chipmunks will burrow into the ground where it's much cooler than it is up at the surface of the ground to escape the heat. Some animals that live a nocturnal life will actually have the added bonus of not having to deal with being quite as active during the day. So an animal like a coyote that primarily moves around at night is kind of has that added bonus to its nocturnal life, that it doesn't have to be really active and move around a lot during the day when it's much warmer. So these are just some of the few ways that animals will deal with hot conditions in the summer. Plants in some ways actually have an added challenge when it comes to trying to keep cool on a hot day, and that is because they're all rooted in the ground. So unlike animals that can choose to move to a more sheltered area during the day, or some will even create better habitats for themselves by burrowing into the ground to keep cool, plants are very much stuck wherever they sprout. So you can picture a tree that has sprouted in a big open field. Well, that tree has to be able to cope with the really hot summer days when there's nothing around it to shade and provide it with a bit of relief. A big concern that plants face on hot days is actually the loss of water vapor through their leaves. So in a plant's leaves, there are little opening called stomatas, and in that opening, plants will take in carbon dioxide, which is important for photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is the way that plants fuel themselves, and they do this by taking in sunlight and carbon dioxide and converting it into energy for themselves. So through those little holes, those stomata, carbon dioxide goes into the plant, but water vapor can also exit the plant. And on a really hot day, the rate of water loss through those openings actually increases. So a plant has to be able to retain a lot of water on hot summer days to avoid drying out. And plants have a variety of different ways that they can do this. Trees, for example, have that hard outer protective layer of bark around their stems. And bark is not only awesome at protecting from damage that might come from animals, but it also helps lock in moisture to prevent water from leaving. Some plants, like this eastern prickly pear cactus, is more adapted for dealing with hotter and drier conditions. One thing that makes cacti unique is the fact that they don't have any leaves. So if we take a look at this flower over here, we can definitely see that a cactus doesn't have any leaves that look like this. Instead, a cactus is made up of those pads and needles all around itself. And there's a few reasons for this. One is by not having leaves, a cactus is able to reduce the amount of water loss it suffers during the day. Now, cacti will also employ another adaptation for dealing with water loss, and that is only opening their stomata at night when it's cooler. So by doing this, they don't lose as much water during the day. But since photosynthesis still requires sunlight and carbon dioxide, what a cactus will do is it'll store any carbon dioxide it draws in at night for when it's sunny during the day to photosynthesize with and create energy for itself. This cactus, the eastern prickly pear cactus, is actually really special because it's Ontario's only native cactus. So this is a plant that you could find down in southern Ontario close to Lake Erie, which is pretty incredible to consider that Ontario actually has a native cactus. While plants and animals definitely do have a lot of amazing adaptations to cope with hot weather, they aren't limitless in their ability to deal with these conditions. And this is where climate change can cause organisms quite a lot of problems. So weather can describe the current conditions we experience. So that would be the current temperature, rainfall, wind, etc. And climate is the average historic weather pattern for a given region. And if we look throughout North America, around the world, even here in Southern Ontario, there isn't a shortage of record-breaking heat days or extended heat waves all throughout these areas. And that is a big sign for us that we are stepping outside of the expected historic weather pattern in a given region. Now, all of these really cool adaptations that plants and animals have for dealing with heat are a result of evolution, which, if you remember back to one of my videos on evolution, evolution is the change in a characteristic within a population over time. And the tricky part about adaptations and evolution is the fact that it takes time. So for plants and animals to adapt and evolve mechanisms to cope with even warmer weather that we're seeing nowadays, it could take quite a bit of time to get there. One of the big problems that climate change can pose for many organisms is the fact that in spring and summer, this is the time where a lot of plants and animals are reproducing. So now dealing with the added stress of really hot days might mean that plants have to devote more energy towards just surviving than actually reproducing. So some plants and animals might not reproduce for a year, or they might reproduce in smaller quantities than they usually do, which can be quite difficult for some populations to deal with. There are, of course, lots of ways that you can help reduce your impact on the environment. There's lots of personal choices you can make, like using more energy efficient appliances, biking to work, and reducing your water uses. These are all things that can add up to really cut down your impact on the environment. As consumers, we all have a lot of power when it comes to what products we buy and what companies we buy from, hopefully inspiring other companies to create greener products and to run their companies in a more sustainable fashion. And of course, a really big thing you can do is learn more about a subject. So the more you learn about climate change, the more you might care and be inspired to take actions and help do your part. And of course, talk to other people to inspire others to do their part. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about some of the different mechanisms that plants and animals employ to deal with hot weather. And I hope you'll join me next week for another video. I'll see you.